I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime. Thus, persons in the new tax regime with income up to 7 lakh will not have to pay any tax at all.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to Budget 2023, our continuous rolling coverage here at CNN News 18. With me, the managing editor, Zaka Jacob, and we also have our political editor, Maria Shakil. I'm just keeping the introduction short and crisp because we've got plenty of ground to cover, ladies and gentlemen, because this budget in an hour and 25 minutes covers everybody. It's a Sabka budget. That was what was promised by the finance minister as she began her address on the floor of the House, that this will be an inclusive budget. So let's quickly look at the highlights of Budget 2023 and why we say it's Sabka budget. It's got fiscal prudence in consideration. It's got poll considerations. So there is about the vision of Bharat in 2047, but there is also the vision of the ballot in 2024 and of course the build-up in the states. We got Zaka on the wall, not with the poll numbers, but with the budget numbers this time. And we look at all of that in detail. But let's signpost some of the salient features. The growth via higher capital spending up by 33% to 10 lakh crore rupees. It surprised everybody, and the corporate world has welcomed it. Focus on fiscal prudence continues. No tax on salary up to 7 lakh rupees in the new tax regime. So it's an out and out rebate if your salary is 7 lakhs. If it is more than that, then you get into the slabs which have also been revised in the new tax regime. Tax savings for young and retired continue. Nudge to the new tax regime is very clearly evident. This capex target of 10 lakh crore is very, very important because this capital expenditure is what will solve perhaps the jobs problem, ladies and gentlemen. Is everybody happy about it? We have to wait and see whether or not everybody is happy about it. What are the other allocations and some of the other sectors that have been taken care of in this budget? Let's try and understand. The PM Awas Yojana, the outlay has been hiked by 66%. So the construction, building of homes, affordable homes for those for whom the dream of a makan, their own makan, a chhat on their head, was a far distant dream. They want to take that further. But what that does is that again generates employment, the steel industry, cement industry, and of course the labor intensive industry. 35,000 crore for green energy transition, and it's being incentivized because sustainability, green energy is one of the 7 pillars which the finance minister said Saptarishi. 2.4 lakh crore out of the 10 lakh crore is the outlay for railways. So infrastructure push continues. So they're on that path. They're staying steady and they're not deviating from it. It's perhaps the biggest ever allocation that's ever happened for railways. And then what are the other salient features that stand out? Is there something in there for the Kisan? Yes. Is skilling an important aspect that will be considered? Yes. And these pushes are over the next 3-year horizon. So they're looking beyond Lok Sabha 2024. And the Prime Minister very, very clearly said a Samriddh, Samarth and Sampan Bharat. That's the vision for 2047. So let's try and break up what stands out. For you and me, the salaried class, ladies and gentlemen, the highlight is tax mein kuch bachega ke liye, tax mein kuch bachega liye. For 2 years, nothing happened, Zaka. But this time, big bang announcements.
Yeah, I think for the middle class, absolutely, it is the tax numbers that everybody is crunching. They're looking at the new tax regime. First of all, the big picture, the new tax regime up until last year had 7 slabs. She's now slashed that down to 5. So it's an important thing. The big announcement, of course, is that if you have an income, like Anand was saying, up to 7 lakh rupees, then you pay no income tax whatsoever. Anything above 7 lakhs, then this is the new tax regime. These are the rates as per which you will be paying your tax. So let's assume you have an income of 8 lakh rupees, which means for the first 3 lakh rupees, you will not be paying any income tax. Between 3 lakh and 6 lakh rupees, that's 3 lakh rupees, you will pay 5%, that's 15,000 rupees. And then for the remaining 6 lakh to 8 lakh, which is 2 lakh rupees, you will pay at 10%, which is 30,000. So effectively, your net tax at an income of 8 lakh rupees annually would be 45,000 rupees, which would be a net saving, and we'll get to that in 1 second. But I think what they've essentially done, what the finance minister has essentially done, is rationalize both the slabs and the rates. From 7 rates, we've gone down to 5 rates now. And I think that is a very, very clear signal, a nudge that the new tax regime is where you need to be.
Where we go back to that number, ये बस trailer था, just to give you an understanding. There are many people who have more questions and more issues. We'll play out what the Prime Minister. There's one other important aspect, salient feature of the budget, which are the sectors where the focus has been kept, along with, of course, doing something for the middle class. It's not a populist budget, many people say, but if you look at the fine print, all the various dynamics which will be used over the next 18 months are there. The play is there. 15,000 crore for tribal development, an important vote bank which been spoken about. There is huge amounts of investment in agri-tech, agricultural startups, and of course, rising millet production. Again, incentivizing the farmer, dairy, fisheries, again, water bank, which is going to be critical, which is going to be important. So revamp credit guarantee for MSMEs, another sector which is critical if you want to boost our manufacturing. So all of this is now considered. We have the Prime Minister's position or opinion on the budget. We'll play all of that, but first let's get across to the Sherpa at the G20 now. But he has also worn multiple hats in the past, and he's been integral to this growth story that's been charted over the course of the last 8 years and into this full budget, the last full budget of Modi 2.0. He needs no introduction, but as always, fantastic to speak with you. Amitabh Kanji, namaste. Your thought process.
Namaskar.
Fiscal prudence versus populism. It was not easy, but how do you rate this budget?
Well, I rate this budget as a budget for a new India. It's a budget which pushes the consumption story of India, which was very important, because consumption, putting more resources into the hands of the middle class, will push consumption, which in turn will push capacity utilization, which will then push greater investments from private sector and create this vicious cycle of production and productivity in India, which was very important. Second is, of course, this huge focus on infrastructure, which has been done with 10 lakh crores, which is a remarkable thing, because the finance minister has maintained a lot of fiscal discipline, because when you move from 6.4 to 5.9 and lay down your medium-term strategy of 4.5, you are basically crowding in private sector investment over a long period. I think the main challenge to India's growth story is about two things. One is more consumption and reviving the animal spirit of the private sector, which I think this budget will remarkably do in the coming days. The other two remarkable things about this budget was also this focus on going digital, not in one sector, across Indian economy, and going green, which is very, very important, because with the border tax of Europe coming in 2026, it's very important to do this energy transition and go green. So these are some of the remarkable things which have happened in this budget. It's a transformative budget.
Himalayas, green fuel, and of course the oceans. These could be perhaps our resource pools going forward in the future. But the Prime Minister also said, not just India, the world is watching this budget of 2023-24. India leading the G20 this year. It's the onus, the world is here in India. How do you think the global fraternity will receive this budget, Mr. Khan?
So, Anand, the important thing to understand is that the world is going through several crises. You know, there's a geopolitical crisis, there's a post-COVID crisis, 200 million people have gone below poverty line, there's a crisis of fuel, food and fertilizer. In the midst of all this, India is the fastest growing large economy. And what India has done through this budget is really to accelerate the pace of this growth. Also, what it has demonstrated is its huge determination to use technology to pole vault in many ways, also push many of its own priorities. You know, the women-led development story, which is a priority of G20, or a priority of inclusive and resilient growth, many of those priorities are driven through this budget. So this budget converges many of the G20 priorities of India in a very big way, and it demonstrates India's huge political will to be a driver of growth in the coming days and a driver of transformative changes.
One highlight, final question, Mr. Kant, one highlight for you. The middle class is looking at the tax slabs. The corporate world is looking at the capex of the government and whether or not they're going to create a investment-friendly environment. For you, what stands out? One single highlight.
So, for me, this budget is remarkable for its huge focus on green growth, which is very critical in the years to come. This budget is transformative for being digitally very savvy, and both these will be the transformative story of India in the coming days. If you can do the green leapfrogging, and if you can be the transformative digital transformation story of the world, then you are rising in many, many sunrise areas of growth. This budget also focuses a lot on technology and energy storage, energy battery storage, pump storage. All these will make India grow rapidly in the years to come.
Mr. Khan, thank you very much. We look forward to speaking to you at length, not just on G20, but also along with the budget and, of course, the roadmap. Like you said, we are going through really tough times geopolitically. Thank you. Thank you very much for speaking with us. Let's quickly move on, ladies and gentlemen. Plenty of guests. It's an array of voices with various opinions and perspectives on the budget. Joining us now is the CEO of Niti Aayog, Param Ayerji. Parmeshwar Ayerji, namaskaram. Thank you very much. You've worn a different hat when the Swachh Bharat mission started. You've just come back from Davos. You've pitched the India story. Does this budget breathe life into the innovation process? You get the cue on life. Yeah.
I think it does more than that, Anand. It doesn't just breathe life, it sort of vigorously blows life into the whole inclusive growth agenda of the government. Coming back from Davos, where there was huge interest expressed in investing in India, I think this budget now is going to push that interest even further. It's of course very balanced. I think it's a growth with inclusion budget. Several highlights which many people would have spoken about. But I think that a couple of important features which I would like to highlight. First of all, I think it's a budget for everyone. All sections of society, from the vulnerable to industry. I think it's got something for every section. But apart from that, I think that the big focus on capital expenditure, the huge increase in capital expenditure, 10 lakh crores in the coming year, the incentive to the states for the 50-year interest-free loan of 1.3 lakhs to them, with of course some reforms to be done. The creation of the setting up of the National Urban Infrastructure Fund for Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. So I think this budget in terms of infrastructure is taking it all the way down. It's not just limiting it to metros and the largest cities. So there's a big push. The railways have got 2.4 lakh crores, the highest ever. So the capex spending, the commitment on capex spending is sending a huge signal for infrastructure, for development, for growth, for jobs. That's on the one side. And then if you look at what does it have for inclusion, you can go from the remarkable 15,000 crore PMPVTG mission for tribal development, the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. I mean, that's a phenomenal announcement. There are about 28 to 30 lakhs of this section, which is at the lowest end of the tribal population. And now the idea is to get them basic services in just 3 years. Wow. That is phenomenal. The push on that, then of course, there are a number of other programs. We can get into detail. But I would say another important point I wanted to highlight is the emphasis on results-based financing. Perhaps not much noticed. The finance minister spoke about the need to shift towards focusing on inputs and how much money you've spent, and rather focus on what are the outcomes. What have you actually achieved? And how is that verified? So that will be piloted in the coming year in a few programs. I think that's a very important signal. And then of course is the working with states. I think that's where Niti in particular has done a lot of work. the State Support Mission, where we are working with state governments and helping them articulate and develop their own inclusive growth and GDP goals. What is the capacity to do that? What are the state institutes of transformation which need to be set up? So when planning became Niti, and it's more about development strategy, how are states taking this approach forward? How are we, so we are helping them in areas in which we have comparative advantage on digital, on renewable energy, on PPPs, on asset monetization. So all this work is going on. And then, of course, taking development down to the lowest level. The FM level spoke about the aspirational block program, which earlier we were focusing at the district level, the aspirational district program. Now it's about how you take it down to that level, look at 500 blocks in the country, and how can we, bring them up, leapfrog them to development and bring them up and beyond to the state average. So a lot of initiatives, a lot of, I think, very important growth-related initiatives taken in the budget. I think this is going to be a big push over the coming years.
What will be the thrust for the Niti Aayog in the next 3 years? Are you going to play a key role in skilling? Because that's been highlighted. And you also said that the finance minister has also said result-based financing or result-oriented financing. Will the state governments actively participate? Because there is huge pressure on Niti Aayog to get the states to also participate. There's also the thrust on building a strong, robust public digital infrastructure.
No, absolutely. So we already have a very robust public digital infrastructure. I mean, whether you look at payments or identity or data, it's already, we are leading in the world in that. And in fact, we can contribute to learning across the world. For Niti Aayog, working on areas where we specialize, on digital, on electric mobility, on technology, on startups with our Atal Innovation Mission, and with our Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, which is now going to focus on results-based financing, which was announced by the finance minister, and taking it down to the states. It's very, very important with the increase in developmental expenditure to make sure that it is well spent and it actually leads to outcomes on the ground. So that needs to be independently verified. Our Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office has started specializing in this, and those lessons will be taken not just to central ministries, but also building capacity for state governments to implement in their arena.
Param Iyerji, thank you very much for your time. We'll chat at length very soon. We've got plenty of ground to cover on this coverage today on the budget. I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much.
And with that, let's listen in to the Prime Minister himself, who spoke to the media soon after the budget was presented by Nirmala Sitharaman. Let's not forget, this is the last full budget before the general elections of 2024. The Prime Minister has said that this has laid foundation for building developed India.
अमृत काल का ये पहला बजट विकसित भारत के विराट संकल्प को पूरा करने के लिए एक मजबूत नींव का निर्माण करेगा। ये बजट वंचितों को वरीयता देता है। ये बजट आज की एस्पिरेशनल सोसाइटी, गांव, गरीब, किसान, मध्यम वर्ग, सभी के सपनों को पूरा करेगा। मध्यम वर्ग के साथ खड़ी रहने वाली हमारी सरकार ने मध्यम वर्ग को टैक्स में बड़ी राहत दी है। इस सर्वस्पर्शी और विकसित भारत के निर्माण को गति देने वाले बजट के लिए मैं फिर एक बार निर्मला जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं।
Samriddh, Samarth और Sampan Bharat. These were the three pillars on which India is envisioning its road ahead till 2047. But as Nirmala Sitharaman said, 7 pillars or Saptarishi. First up, inclusive development announcements for women, SC, ST, OBCs, other underprivileged groups, along with taking care of the salaried middle class, the government employees who are going to retire, pension person, senior citizens. Everybody's been spoken about. Reaching the last mile or Antyodaya, this has been a stated vision, and they want to follow the ideals of Vinoba Bhave and the likes of Deen Dayal Upadhyay and Mahatma Gandhi. So aspirational blocks program for distribution of government services. So from aspirational districts, they move to block level, where they also want to encourage state governments to start building unity malls where everybody can converge. Farmers, local producers can come there and sell their produce. So unity malls is something which they want to push. Capex outlay increased steeply by 33%. So this is the infrastructure and investment. That's the third pillar. The fourth pillar is unleashing the potential. National data governance policy for innovation and research for startups. This time around, very aggressively pushing agri startups. So at the rural level, encouraging entrepreneurship and a certain level of initiative. Financial sector, it looks at the MSME revamp schemes, getting an infusion of 9,000 crore plus into the entire corpus and strengthening what is going to be the driving force in our push to becoming a manufacturing economy or a nation too, along with services. 35,000 crore capital investment towards energy transition. Green growth is something which we are committed to, and like Mr. Kant and Paramayar were saying, sustainability is core to our growth and we need to leapfrog, take that jump, and that can be done only with youth power. So the next pillar, PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.2, to skill lakhs of youth with new age courses, on-the-job training and sector-wise skilling. And this will be also part of the entire Vishwakarma initiative, where those who are doing the hard skilled labor and work, craftsmen, they will also be encouraged. So these are the 7 pillars that Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, the finance minister, spoke about. Let's listen into a short excerpt of her 1 hour 25-minute long budget speech.
I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime, the new personal income tax regime, with 6 income slabs starting from 2.5 lakh. I propose to change the tax structure in this regime by reducing the number of slabs to 5 and increasing the tax exemption limit to 3 lakhs. The new tax rates are 0 to 3 lakh, nil; 3 to 6 lakhs, 5%; 6 to 9 lakhs, 10%; 9 to 12 lakh, 15%; 12 to 15 lakhs, 20%; and above 15 lakhs, 30%. Mahila Samman Savings Certificate will be made available for a 2-year period up to March 2025. This will offer deposit facility up to 2 lakh in the name of a woman or girls for a tenure of 2 years at fixed interest rate of 7.5% with partial withdrawal option. The maximum deposit limit for senior citizens savings scheme will be enhanced from 15 lakh to 30 lakhs of rupees. The maximum deposit limit for monthly income account scheme will be enhanced from 4.5 lakh to 9 lakh for single account and from 9 lakh to 15 lakh for joint account. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.0 will be launched to skill lakhs of youth within the next 3 years. On-job training, industry partnership, and alignment of courses with needs of industry will be emphasized.
Let me take all questions to the panelists who are joining me now. Tuhin Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP, Salman Soz, Congress spokesperson, Mohandas Pai, chairman of Aryan Capital Partners, Dr. Krishna Ella, executive chairman, Bharat Biotech, and we also have Gaurav Chaudhary. I'm going to begin with you, Mohandas Pai. Your first reaction, of course, it is being said that this is not a populist budget, but one which believes in looking at the politics of it clearly.
Well, I think it's a truly transformative budget for many reasons. You know, tax collections have increased more than what is budgeted, from 27.5 lakh crores to around 31 lakh crores. I think it's an underestimate. We could have final taxes by another 1 lakh crore this year, because tax buoyancy in direct taxes up to January 7th is about 19% net of refunds, right? And next year they're saying 33, it could go to 35. So it showed that there's real good growth in the economy. And during the NDA regime, GDP would have grown from 113 lakh crores to 301 lakh crores by March 2024. That is very good news. Second is, I like the fact that on social schemes, spending has increased Prime Minister Modi is making sure by 2024, almost all Indians will have a house, water in the tap, power in the switch, toilet in the house, a bank account, money in the bank, education for children, food on the table, a health insurance, a mobile connection, etc., which is fantastic because we don't want anybody in India to be deprived. And the third is the massive spending on infrastructure, 7.5 lakh crores this year, 10 lakh crores next year. And I think that is very good because that will create more jobs.
Yes.
We are creating 9 lakh jobs per month as per the EPFO, out of which 55% are jobs in the age group of 18 to 25. But the jobs do not pay more than 20,000 rupees, up to 80%. So I think there's need to increase that. That will happen if there's growth. And then what they're doing in terms of targeted schemes for people below the poverty line, the 500 blocks where aspiration is happen, etc., is very good. As far as business is concerned, investment in increased infrastructure is very good. Increased digitization is very good. The banking sector has been cleaned up because the UPI had done telephone banking, given loans to many cronies which had to be written up. And I think that's very good. They cleaned up. There has been no corruption in the NDA for the last 9 years.
Responsible and a comprehensive budget. Dr. Ella, if I'm looking at the health budget, which has been hiked by almost 15% to 88,956 from 77,351 crores, do you think that is particularly because after what we saw in the pandemic and the health sector needs that kind of push?
I think, they've done the great job to balance the rural economy, health, skill development. And I think the more focus was focused on the rural economy. And that deserves, certainly. But health, I think, putting the 157 nursing colleges are very critical because we're going to see a shortage of nurses in the country. A lot of them are leaving the country. A lot of them are shortage. I think that's a good move. And sickle cell anemia. I think we never thought about that. It's an important game where a lot of tribal population is going to screen for the 0 to 40 years for sickle cell anemia. I think they're a good initiative. And I think ICMR has been told to work with the public-private partnership. That is what I've been arguing, that every government institute should work with industry to partner in the healthcare also. I think that has been formalized. And certainly the R&D and innovation, medical devices, look at it, they are putting high-end manufacturing, skill set development. And for example, 3D manufacturing and drones and artificial intelligence for the healthcare. And as certainly the focus on skill development. I think that's a good move. And I consider it's whatever they've done, although the more focus was on rural economy than the health, but certainly is a welcome sign. Thank you.
In terms of employment generation, one point being made is that, of course, this push that has been given to infrastructure, if that entire capital outlay for railways has increased substantially, it will lead to employment generation. What do you see vis-a-vis the health sector?
The health sector is still not focused heavily on that, but certainly they put more on the innovation side. Pharma, R&D should invest more into that, but there's no specifics of that yet. So we need to know what the specifics of any incentive or anything is given. But the finance ministry has mentioned that there is a push for the R&D and manufacturing and the pharma skill development. But I think it's still not mentioned fine details of it. But I think this whole financial bill is really good on the rural economy. I'll tell you a few bullet points on the rural economy, if you allow me that. The entire thing on the women entrepreneurship and all scheduled caste OBC integration in this and digital agriculture infrastructure. I think that's a very critical crop planning because we farmers grow crop and then you lose the market. Everybody grows one crop and then lose the market. I think this crop planning will help the country to portion on that digital infrastructure. And also, agriculture accelerated fund is going to help a lot of startups of this country in agriculture. That focus again. And a high-value horticulture crops, although it is not mentioned what the crops are, but certainly there is going to be an export potential for the agriculture, horticulture crops, where the pomegranate can be exported to other part of the world. And millets, of course, the Honorable Prime Minister has been talking, and that has been there. Animal husbandry got a very good incentive. Fisheries is amazing incentive. And I think there's a lot of people who are in the coastal area are going to benefit in this. So again, it's a rural economy. And look at Ekalavya School. It is again a rural economy, rural schools, where the tribal population is going to be integrated into the schools. That is again, And also the Honorable Finance Minister mentioned artificial intelligence drones has to be integrated into the agriculture. So that is again getting into these startups where they're going to involve in agriculture. And I think biocompost. I mean, I hope we don't get into Sri Lankan model where they got into biocompost issue, but I think they've done smartly putting 10,000 bio centers where they can make a biomanure, biopesticides right in the rural economy, not coming from the top down. Yeah. It's at the bottom down. I think that's a good move. I think these are all the good strategies for the economy. When a consumer increases, the awareness increases, farmers' economy increases, the health is also benefited in that process.
Dr. Ella, you've highlighted a lot of aspects as part of this budget. Tuhin Sinha of the BJP is with us. I'm just going to go across to check if Mr. Mohandas Pai is also with us. There he is. He is there with us. And Gaurav Chaudhary is also with us. Salman Sozji, namaste. This is Anand Narasimhan here. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Mohandas Pai ji, one of the aspects in this is that the corporates were unhappy with returns, long-term capital gains, and also certain debentures now being considered as market instruments. So the taxation rates have gone up. So some of those aspects, many believe, should not have been touched. Where do you stand on that, even though many are welcoming the slash in the tax slabs?
Look, the earlier long-term capital gain exemption for investment in a house, unlimited, was wrong. I totally agree that 10 crore is the limit. It should have been brought down to 5 crores. There's no reason why if you get a long-term capital gains of 7-8 crores, you should not pay tax. You should pay tax. If I sell my shares, I pay 10% tax. What is the difference with selling a property? So if I invest, why should I get the benefit? I think that's right. I agree with that. And this MLD program, whatever it is, market-like debentures, where they wanted to make it as a long-term capital gain, that's a structured instrument. So any structured instrument which is created to avoid taxation or reduce the rate of taxation, I am all for taxing them at normal rates because there are distortions in the market. I think if these people are unhappy, it is fine. Let them be unhappy. I bear nothing for people who are earning high income. But one thing is, I want the tax rate to be brought down from 39% to 35%, and to plug the loopholes in the taxes. Because, over the last many years, more than 40,000 high net worth individuals have left this country.
Correct.
And I think we should make sure that they don't leave the country, because each high net worth individual will be spending 3 to 5 crores in the country. The spending power is gone. There are many reasons for them going, and one of them was the 43% tax slab, or the high tax rates, and the CBI, all this kind of inquiries without end. So I think it should make life easier for people who earn money. Please remember, Anand, that Revenue Secretary said only 1 crore people pay any taxes.
Correct.
Now, you've got to treat this 1 crore people well. Yes, you've got to plug the tax loopholes. We all have to pay tax, but don't overtax this 1 crore people. They are the productive people. So I think all this I agree, but we must improve reduce the tax terrorism. The tax tourism, the amount in dispute has gone up to 12 lakh crores from 4.5 lakh crores in 2014.
Right.
Former Finance Minister Jaitley had promised us that he'll reduce tax terrorism. But in the last 10 years, tax authorities have got
tax
more
terrorism was openly spoken about, was very actively, clearly spoken about by the FM today. But looking at capital expenditure, Zaka Jacob is here. One of the aspects is that we as a country, Zaka, and we can take it to the panelists after you talk about it, are traditionally saving kind of nature. We are risk averse. Now, will this kind of capital expenditure bring out the animal in corporate India? And will they start this whole aspect of risk-taking and spending rather than saving?
So this animal spirits, we've been talking about it for a while. Private investment hasn't come back to the levels that we saw in 2013-14. But I think the capex is a real story of this budget, because it's not just the fact that the headline figure is 10 lakh crores. That is 3.3% of GDP. It is the highest allocation for capital expenditure in any budget. But just look at how it has transformed just in the last couple of years. You have to keep in mind, in fiscal year 2021, which is when the pandemic struck, it was just 4.39 lakhs. So basically, in the last couple of years, you've gone from 4.39 lakh to 10 lakh crores. That's more than double. At a time when the rest of the world, you're seeing this in the US, you're seeing this in the UK, they're sort of beginning to become a lot more frugal now because inflation is running away there. To give this kind of an outlay is mind-boggling. It is very, very ambitious. And remember, the finance minister also in her budget speech today saying that the capex for the last year, that was again an aggressive target of 7.5 lakh crores, much of that has been met. So 10 lakh crores I think the interesting political sort of debate around this, and I want to ask Salman Soz this, is, some of this money obviously has been taken away from existing schemes. You cannot go from 4.39 lakh crores 2 years ago to 10 lakh crores. The money has to come from somewhere. Manrega, for example, monies have come. But don't you believe, Salman Soz, that even for that same rural constituency, it is better to spend in capital expenditure rather than, as some would say, doles like Manrega?
Thank you, Zaka and Anand, for getting to me. I know everybody's excited about this budget. This is an annual ritual as far as I can tell. The government comes out with a budget. Friends in media and the ecosystem of the BJP start calling it a masterstroke, transformative, green shoots of recovery, things like that. And every year, the same thing happens. Let me burst this bubble a little bit. As far as I'm concerned, a budget is not just about revenues and expenditures. A budget is in some ways an opportunity for a government to give citizens a sense of how their well-being can also be improved in the short term, because a lot of the budget is already spoken for. But does this budget, given India's economic situation, India's economy grew in the first quarter at about 13.5%, in the second quarter at about 6.5%, and given what the finance minister said, she said that India was going to grow at about 7%. The IMF says it's at about 6.8%, and then declining the next fiscal year. That tells us that in the last 2 quarters, the economy is averaging a growth rate of about 4.2%, something like that. That means things are not that good. But in this economy that is facing global headwinds as well, because the IMF has already projected that things are going to be a little turbulent in the future. What do we do for the people of the country? Is this government looking at poverty? Is this government looking at inequality? Is this government looking at unemployment? Or basically just trying to create jobs? Now, I know that everybody's very excited about capital expenditure, and I'll get to that. But let me just give you one data point. Things like social welfare, urban development, health, education, agriculture and allied activities. According to the government, these 5 very critical areas are far lower in terms of expenditure on these activities that is budgeted than transport. Now, you will say the transport is very important. I do understand that transport is important. Capital expenditures are important. But any economist worth his, any decent economist would say that social infrastructure is as much, if not more important than hard infrastructure.
Salmanji, we can't.
I'm shocked that Indian policymakers
here are the numbers, Salmanji.
Learn this lesson.
Salmanji, here are the numbers. Spends on education have gone up by 13%. Spends on health have gone up by 15%. Spends on social welfare gone up by 18.4%. Spends on home affairs have gone up by 8% compared to the last budget. Yes, there is a huge amount of money that you are saying is going towards building roads and focusing on transport, but that's one of the basic needs. I will open this up for a larger discussion. Please bear with me to all our guests. We've got compelled to take a short break, and then I'll come back and we'll take this forward. Please stay with us.